One of the biggest tragedies of recent history, the Winter Hill air crash claimed the lives of 35 Manxmen. Today, a memorial service was held in St John's, organised by Douglas Rotary Club, and I'm with Mike Priest, the president of Douglas Rotary. This is something that you do every year, isn't it?
It is, yes, since the accident in 1958. Like you say, there were 35 people killed, and we have every year a ceremony in this area. On 50 years, which was 2008, we did a memorial plaque which is in Cooley, but today it's a foot under water, so we've come to St John's Church instead to hold a ceremony here. In Horwich, at Winter Hill, the Horwich Rotary Club were very good in all the work that they did in helping the survivors and the crash, so every year they also have a ceremony on Winter Hill which we attend, and that's usually around the 1st of May. And they come over and look at us in April.
Why do you think it's important to continue to mark this?
Well, there's lots of people with relatives still alive, of course, here, and they were all Manxmen, so we keep it going because of that, really, and their memories. And it's important to them as well as it is to Douglas Rotary.
Now, turning to you, John Brown, I believe that you had a relative in the air crash.
Yes, my grandfather was killed in the air crash. My father travelled over the following day and spent quite a considerable time in Horwich, staying with the gentleman who was in charge of the HR at the Bickers de Havilland plant in the area. And he in fact identified many of the victims and flew back with the coffins to the island following the inquests.
That's absolutely devastating for all the families.
Yes, totally different in those days. Of course, he arrived home at 4:30 and went to work that night at 8 o'clock. So different world in those days, I think, to today.
And did he talk to you much about what happened?
He never ever talked about it. I took him back. I'd been a few times, but the first time he'd ever been back up the hill was the year before he died. And I took him back there, and Alan Cretney, whose father was killed, Alan arranged for us to meet up with the local police and an archivist, and we had a very interesting day there, which I think, he, in his own way, when I say enjoyed the day, we found out a lot of information. The hill, of course, was snowed in at the time of the accident, and it took a long time for them to actually reach the victims.
And this was a party of local motor traders, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Well, my grandfather had a garage in Douglas with wagons and coaches.
Now, what does it mean to you to be here today?
Well, I was old enough to remember him quite well, and obviously it impacted on us all, really. My father took the call. I think the only time he'd ever been in the police station in his life, because he'd had a hernia operation, so he took the call. And my grandmother, of course, was left on her own, and there wasn't much compensation from air crashes in those days, so it did have a big impact. And I've got a number of friends who were children, very young children, when their fathers died. So I think it's, the whole island felt it desperately. I remember the night of the accident going around the island with my father in the car, visiting people, and I think picking up ideas for identification. And I didn't go into the houses, of course, but I know it was a fairly difficult time for everybody concerned.
A lot of families, really.
A lot of families, a lot of children orphaned, and a lot of tragedies behind those stories too. Not something really to talk about now, but there are an awful lot of tragedies behind the children who were orphaned as well, yes.
So it's important to remember, really, do you think?
I think it is, yes. And sadly the memorial is not always reachable, and I always think it's a shame. I think it's great what the Rotary Club did, but I always think it's a shame it wasn't put somewhere that's more accessible for older people. I mean, I've had to get the keys of the forestry road to get my mother into the memorial because she can't walk down all those steps, So it is something maybe we have to think about for the future,
yes,
Mr. President.
We can have a look at that.
Yes,
That's not the problem.
Yes.